everyone, and welcome to another Jakarta Tech Talk. My name is Irina. Joining us today is Michael Rutledge, who will be presenting on the topic of getting started with Jakarta EE 11 and what's new in Jakarta EE 12. If you have any questions for Michael as we move through today's presentation, feel free to ask them in the chat or use the Ask a Question tab. Without any further delay, Michael, over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So yeah, thanks for the introduction, and let me get going here. Oops. Screen. All right, good. Perfect. Oh, I gave that away too quickly. All right, I'll explain that in a minute. So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in this great world of ours. This is a picture of Providence, Rhode Island, on what they call East Providence, and this is the Seekonk River looking across to that nice bridge there. So we go up to Rhode Island from time to time. So we like it up there, especially we go to Newport, Rhode Island. So all right, so to get things going here, how did we get here? And you can see the evolution of Java EE into Jakarta EE since 1998. So JPE is the Java Professional Edition, is what the name was before it was called Java EE, or J2EE actually, more accurately. And then this was around before the Java community process was formed. Interestingly, I couldn't find any real details on JPE, so I'd have to actually maybe have a little conversation with some of the folks that were around back then. But anyway, as you see here, the timeline, and especially going from Java EE 8 to Jakarta EE 8, which is obviously when Oracle had donated Java EE to the Eclipse Foundation, and so it's all the specifications that were introduced along the way, now have their Jakarta EE equivalent. So it's been a nice, rich history, and we have Jakarta EE 11, and then with 12 is scheduled to be released next year. We'll talk more about that. So hello, my name is Michael Rutledge. I'm a Java champion, very honored for that. Co-director of the Garden State Java User Group, which we meet in Madison, New Jersey. Lead editor, or the Java Q editor, I should say, for InfoQ. I've been writing for them since 2016. I do some contract work with Payara as a dev advocate and as a technical writer. I'm committer on the Jakarta Data and Jakarta NoSQL specs. And I'm the VP of the Jakarta EE Ambassadors. And I wrote a book on Helidon, which came out at the end of last year, which was quite the effort to get that done. And I credit my lovely wife, Rowena, with helping me make that push for when they needed everything to be completed. Oh, and by the way, I retired from ExxonMobil 2 years ago. I had 33.5-year career with them, which was, awesome actually to be part of that, in the oil business and learning all about that. So, all right, enough about that. So I wanted to see how much I can really embarrass myself. I showed this to Serena and Alina earlier, and then I came across this picture that, believe it or not, that is me. And I really wanted to point out the amount of hair that I had back then. And this was, as you can see, 1989. So yeah, it's definitely a picture worth keeping. So anyway, all right. So we have a poll, but if you want to put it in the chat, that's great. I'd like to know if there's anybody who's a Jakarta EE expert, then you can probably, tell me some things. And then, have you built an application using Jakarta EE, or are you familiar with Jakarta EE but haven't used it? Maybe you've heard some things about Jakarta EE, and hopefully, I'm sure there's nobody in this category, but is there anybody out there that is asking what the heck is Jakarta EE? So If you want to put that in the chat, that's great. If not, this is more of a poll for, in-person type presentation. All right, so to get started with, regardless of what version of Jakarta EE, I just wanted to cover the profile. And there are 3 of them, and the main platform has about 30 specs in there at this moment out of the 42. There's the web profile, and then there's the core profile. I mean, we'll talk about those quickly at each one. So the platform itself is all the applications. That's actually specifications. I needed to fix that. All of the specs in there that have been voted in to be part of the platform. So if you need all of them or most of them or whatever, then you would technically use this, right? And we'll see which ones. Oh, there they are. So yeah, so this is part of the Jakarta EE 11 platform. This will change for Jakarta EE 12. What it is, we don't know yet, but we'll get there. So as you can see, the updated specifications are in blue. And there is a brand new spec, Jakarta Data, and I'll show you a demo on that. And then all the others in gray did not provide any kind of updates for 11. The web profile essentially is just a subset of the entire platform that, mainly designed for web technologies, right? And then there's, I believe, 23, something like that. Jakarta Data is part of that as well, and you can see all the others. And then finally, the core profile, which was introduced in Jakarta EE 10 in September 2022, was designed for smaller runtimes, microservices, those kinds of things, just a minimal set of specs that you might need for your application. And those are the 7 right there. Okay. So you can see, and those of you familiar with microprofile, a lot of those in the core profile had their JSR equivalents from back in 2016 that made up the original 3 specs in microprofile back then. So, all right. So how did we get here to 11? All right. This is the timeline we had. Milestone 1 was released in December of 2023. In March of last year, Milestone 2, Milestone 3 in April last year, and then Milestone 4 in May. All right. The original intent was to have the platform, web profile, and core profile all that need their release, releases approved, were done separately. So I'll talk about that in a minute here. So the core profile was approved and released in December of last year. Now, with only 7 specs, this was easy enough to do. And then the web profile was released just a couple of months ago. And then I'm happy, well, okay, I'm gonna wait till later about that. The platform is available for you to use now, but the official announcement will come later this week. But yes, we do have a formal release of the platform itself. So we've made it, as you can see, the guy on top of the mountain there, right? And it's been a long road, and let's see. Yeah, I just want to say the delay, which hopefully people aren't just going to say it was a delay for the sake of a delay. There was a good practical reasons for that. The technology compatibility kit was outdated, so it was decided to upgrade all that, so that subsequent releases of Jakarta EE will be more efficient. So they were using Ant. Now I remember using Ant back in the day, and I still like it, right? So, but that got migrated to Maven, and then the test harness was migrated over to Archillion, and then I think they used Open Rewrite to do a lot of this work. But with all the number of tests, there's like thousands of tests in the TCK. So you can imagine, even with a tool like Open Rewrite, this is not an easy task. So I think this was well worth the effort And with a release of 12 in 2026, at this time next year, I think that's more attainable now because of this work that was done. So there was one new spec, as I already mentioned, Jakarta Data, and then a total of 16 specs that you saw on the graphs, right, have been updated and passed their respective reviews, right? All right, so what's new? CDI Lite is basically a separation of the, let's see, I have a cartoon here. There we go. So it was to separate everything from, I'm drawing a blank right now, sorry. I have notes here to, okay, there we go. Yes, CDI will split the integration-related spec text into a separate specification document, and then this solves a circular dependency problem. So, yeah, sorry about that. Don't get old. So, and then the optional features in Jakarta SOAP with attachments and XML web services and XML binding are no longer allowed. For those of you who may not know, that a specification, has to be implemented by a vendor or or a person or something. So Glassfish is a compatible implementation, right? So you're required to implement the specification, right? But then sometimes the spec itself may have optional features, and it was decided not to have that. So, all right. So also what's new here, support for Java records in the expression language, persistence, and validation. And then support for virtual threads in Jakarta concurrency. Of course, that makes sense, right? And let's see, the legacy managed bean annotation has been removed. This was the days before the inject annotation in CDI. So it's decided to remove those. And also Security Manager was deprecated in JDK 17, is going to be removed, JDK 24. And then I had written this here because it was true, but that'll probably go away because I can mention that there is an effort to move microprofile into Jakarta EE, and that's a long, that could be a presentation in itself, but this is in the early stages, and this thing in that third bullet was to have some interoperability between microprofile, JWT, and Jakarta Security. So more about that a little later. So anyway, here's the updated specs in the list form, right? Jakarta Faces was originally supposed to be 5.0. It was decided that they didn't have enough to make maybe say breaking changes or enough significant new features, so they decided to roll that back to a 4.1. And then there's the others right here. So, all right. I hope some of you know who this guy is. He's one of my favorite comedy actors. He's no longer with us, of course, but this is my way of saying, are there any questions? And for me to slow down my, my speaking. So no questions so far?
We'll get to questions at the end of the presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. All right. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate Payara Micro in this case, but the platform itself consists of server and micro. Payara Cloud's been out for about 2.5 years, maybe just close to 3 years. And then coming to a Crowdcast event near you on July 8th, you learn about Payara Cube, right? So this is a way of not having to, they'll take care of the Kubernetes part for you in this case. So there's a lot to learn here. So the formal announcement went out today. So if you want to learn more, you can go to that URL down there. So it's exciting. This is new stuff from Payara coming out. And as I mentioned, the Payara Virtual Conference is July 8th. All right, so time for some demos. So I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go to, this is my Jakarta EE11 GitHub repository, which you can, get to now. So I wanted to demonstrate, let's see, I wanted to demonstrate the Jakarta Data first. And we're not going to go to this in gory detail. You can clone this repo yourself. So this is a beer application. So I'm a fan of craft beer, right? So wherever we go, someplace new, I have to try the local stuff, right? So in this case, we're going to model this in a MongoDB database. So I have a Pojo for a beer that stores the various things, right? The name of the beer, those kinds of things. And you have all these helper, classes for, like for resources for all your endpoints and all that. Similarly, I characterize, data for a brewer. And I have everything conveniently here in this MongoDB Compass. And you can see the collections are beer and brewer, right? And so you can see the data in here, right? And so let's run this. I'm gonna have to go. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. And I'm gonna have to open another window too because we should have done that before and didn't think of it. Okay. And make that just a little bit. Because I need the bigger fonts, right? So I have MongoDB running at this very, very bottom window, right? So, okay. So what I have here as well, I have a script to start Payara Micro, all right? And you can see that here. And this is the beauty of Payara Micro, right? You don't have to, start the server and then deploy the WAR file, through the server and all that. If you just want to do quick demos like this, you start Payara Micro, right? And this is nice and easy to do and very convenient. So that's why we're doing that here. And of course, you can use Payara server, right? All right. So we'll in the end clean compile or not compile. We need to package, and then start. All right. Now, of course, let's hope the demo gods are with me. I demonstrated this last week at the SuJava event, but you know how these things go sometimes. Okay. And what it's test. And by the way, while this is going, please, if you clone this and experiment with it and you see something totally wrong, please let me know. That's the only way these things get any better, right? So, or if you have, other suggestions, it's greatly appreciated. So, okay, takes a few seconds, of course. So on successful deployment, you'll see the, all of the endpoints that were defined in there. So. There we go. So now you see them all here. You got the main endpoint up here, the main URL, right? And then you see all the, HTTP verbs, get, delete, post, and all that good stuff. So we'll do a quick demo of that as well. So we'll just go back to the browser and then put that in there, right? So all these demos have a splash page like this, something silly like, okay, yeah, you can do that. All right, that's fine. So that's just to have that. Now here's the main thing here, right? There's a beer endpoint which will provide a list of all the beers, like in Compass, right? So you have them there, and the same thing with brewer. Okay, you have all the different brewers. Now you see, they have some real brewers in here, but for demos all the time, I have some silly ones here. I've always wanted to start my own brewing company, especially in retirement. So, I can get through that by having my own Red Lake Brewing. I have one in New Orleans. I have one in Williamsburg. Of course, these don't exist, but these are for demos. I have one in Flemington, right? Red Lake Brewing Company, right? So, all right. So let's do something with this. Let's insert something here, right? So what do we have here? Just to double check, we have 14 beers and 11 brewers. So that should change. And this is the reason I needed the other terminal window, not apps, portfolio, and 3. Okay. Okay. So then let me show you the ad. I had it open here. There it is. All right. So this is where we can do our post and then all of our information. We're going to add the Red Lake Brewing Company in Marco Island, Florida, right? My wife are going there middle of next month, so we'll be there for a week. So let's put that in there, and let's put in, I like stouts, so let's do a Marco Island stout, all right? And then it has all that information there. All right, so this is what we'll do. Let's make sure. All right, looks like it did it. How come it didn't do the other one? I had it done commented, I hope. Yes, I did. All right. Maybe it just overwrites it. But if I refresh, let's see. There it is, Red Lake Brewing, Marco Island. It's the 12th one, right? Now, why is that 13? I've been overwriting all this stuff, anyway. But let's see what Compass says here. Refresh there. There's 12. Okay. Yeah, I must have missed a number somewhere. Yeah, the 8's missing. So, okay. But anyway, so yeah, you can see there's a new thing in there, and then we have the Marco Island stout, which should be here. There it is, right there, that one. So, yeah. So that's what you can do. You can also delete. There's a delete script and all that. So this is a fun, way to show Jakarta Data. You can think of Jakarta Data as a base class, and Jakarta NoSQL and Jakarta Persistence as derived classes, that type of thing. It's supposed to be sort of the mother of those two, as it were. And you'll hear more about that. There's a Jakarta Query spec coming out possibly for 12. So, all right, let's go back to Keynote. Oh no, I'm sorry. I don't want to go back to Keynote. I want to go back to another spec. Okay. So I have like 3 hours, don't I? No, I'm only kidding. Oh yeah. So this is JWT Bridge. Now, at the time this proposed spec came out, and it got as far as defining an annotation as interoperability between microprofile JWT and Jakarta Security. My goal was to take an existing JWT app and add the annotation. It never got that far, but I know this can show you, what ultimately will wind up in Jakarta Security in generating a token, right? And I have all that here. I have the users, and then here's this. This was the which I just pretty much copied from from the GitHub repository, because it never became something that be on Maven Central. All right. So it has all of these JWT attributes, right? The public key, the location, and on and on. There's about a dozen of these things here, right? The issuer, the header, all these things. So and then there's the API. You can let's see, what else is there? Or something to generate. Oh, the token. There it is. This was to generate the token. So if we do this, right? So let's run this one, and I think we can. No, I'll need that. All right. And then to get out of micro, you just Control C and you're done, right? All right. And then so in the end, clean. Oh, I probably just do this. There we go. Do the same thing there. Oh, of course, it takes a few seconds. No. I don't know. If I had all these pre-running, I'd have to have about 10 windows open. So, That'll even be more confusing to see. Yeah, and this too, I have to thank Luis Neto from Payara on most of this. Okay, so yeah, he's the one who the crux of most of this code that he demoed last year at a Payara virtual conference. This was something I personally wanted to learn on how to generate JWT tokens. So I thank him for that help. And let's do it here. All right, so you can see, right, exactly the same, right? This silliness here that I have, right? And there is an unsecured high with token endpoint, right? Okay, and then this one says high without token. Now it'll say here, this is a secure endpoint. Please insert a token into the header. All right, let's do that. So what I did was I generate the token, and then what I did personally was generate the run script to, with that new token to actually run. So the first thing we'll need to do is to generate a token, and you'll see it there, right? And then we'll take the run script that was just generated and overwritten from the last time. And then now you can see, hey, Mike, you are now connected to a secure endpoint. So that's what I had to do it that way. So yeah, so this is kind of neat. And then let's see. Finally, we'll do something on security. Okay, and we can probably get rid of this now. All right. Okay, there. Let's see. Okay, let's start with security. And one of the new things on security for 11 is multiple HTTP authentication mechanisms, and where are we? This one. That security, and I've attempted to do that here in a couple of ways. I have a single security servlet, and then a couple of protected servlets, with information. There's the identity store. You can put stuff in that way. Obviously, in production, this is not a good idea, but this is a demo application. Identity store, I have myself and my wife, Rowena, in here, right? So yeah, let's run that. All right, so it looks like it's finished here, right? So, all right, so here's the single security right there for me, right? And it says here, I have a user role of admin, true, audit is true, but I'm not a user, all right? So, okay, that's fine. And then for my wife, Rowena, she is an admin, but I didn't give her audit privilege in this case, but she is a user. So you can see how you can change all these things. Now here's the two servlets, and so I have here Reza. This is for Reza Rahman, as most of you might know, and there's the second one here, and I didn't think about changing the names to show you, but it is the two different authentication mechanisms. Where would that be? Somewhere around here. Yeah, so you would basically test authentication mechanism 2, which implements the HTTP authentication mechanism interface, and you can do that more than once now, where before that wasn't the case, right? So, so with that, I'll go back to the presentation. Are there any questions at this point? Oh, I had this here as what I was using. JDK 21. Oh, this is I should change that now to 11 because I do have that. And then Payara Micro 7, and then that's the GitHub repo. So. All right. So if there's no questions, let's move into the second part of this presentation. Jakarta EE 12. Now, very early stages. Work has been going on for a couple of months already. A lot of the specs passed their original reviews for updates, and we'll talk more about that. So so this has all been going on. So there are 3 new specs. So this is what's new so far. And as things change, I'll update this presentation. I'd like to demonstrate it some more, depending on significance of changes, etc. Right? So there's 3 new specs. I briefly mentioned Jakarta Query, and then coming over from their respective JSRs that were still sitting there and not updated because they were part of Java EE 8. And as you know, there'll never be a Java EE 9, right? So Portlet and Portlet Bridge are also there. And then, as I mentioned for 11, Security Manager class, which is now permanently disabled. A lot of the other specs for 12 are going to do that, right? There's also considerations. I highlight and emphasize considerations. So this is subject to change, but it's stuff out there that the working group or the steering committee is considering. There was talk about the application client container a while back already. So this will be discussed. And I really didn't get a chance to work with it, but I read up on it a little bit, and this was reliant on remote method indication, which has been also deprecated, and Corva, and those kinds of things. So this makes sense, right? But again, this is to be determined, and also alternatives to the Java naming and directory interface, I guess JNDI. That much I don't know about. I don't know what those alternatives are, so I'll try to learn what they are. But this is again being considered. The HTTP 3 spec is out, right? I think it's out, but and then a continued effort to be more CDI centric. It's already started again, like with the managed bean annotation. Let's see, there was that, and then in RESTful web services to do an injection, which you'll see in the demo, in the REST demo. There's the context annotation, but there's going to be a plan to potentially change that to inject, to be, again, more CDI centric, and things like this, okay? And of course, virtual threads is supported in concurrency, but, perhaps there's opportunities to implement virtual threads in other specs. So again, this is just, just some ideas, and we'll see how these things, shape up over the next number of months. So. All right, so there are updates planned to 24 of those specifications, and instead of 42 total specs, there are now 45, and then various stages. All right, and we'll talk about that. Jakarta authentication and Jakarta authorization are separate specs at the moment. These two were not, there was no ballot to update those. I spoke to Ariane Times about this, and he says yes, there's going to be a slow but sure migration for those 2 specs to be under Jakarta security. So that's that. I don't know if this is going to be over a couple of versions, but you can expect that to happen at some point. So there'll be a lot of things changing for 12 and beyond. Okay, so yeah, these are the specs just listed here. I said there's 24. And a lot of these were not updated in 11. And a lot of these that are, planning to update, a lot of them are going to just remove security management. So that's the reason for that. All right, as I briefly mentioned before, micro-profile Jakarta EE. And so if and when that happens, it'll most likely, the JWT authentication spec will probably move to security. Microprofile REST client will most likely move to RESTful web services, and then microprofile config to Jakarta config. Again, this is early stages. These make sense, and how these things get done is to be determined as well. So, but these are the things that have been discussed so far. All right. And again, it makes sense, right? But we'll see. And I took the time to do this. And I was cautioned, because these are none of these have been determined in what profile they'll land, but I wanted to put them all in there on ones that have planned updates, as in blue, the other ones in gray that have no updates planned, and then you see the three new specs I have in yellow. I have RPC in red. There's no version number under that if you go to the page for that, so I'm not quite sure where that stands, but I kind of wanted to point that out. So, but yeah, that's all 45 specs. Right now, I think 30 in platform, 23 in web, and then 7 in core, and that's for Jakarta EE 11. So stay tuned for information on how these work. All right. All right. So here's the proposed roadmap. All right. So there's going to be a milestone 0 sometime soon. All right. But the first milestone is expected in the 3rd quarter of this year. Similarly with the second milestone, and the 4th quarter would be milestone 3, along with milestone 4. And I should say too, the formal reviews to be accepted will happen through these milestones. These are voted upon in waves. So they define specs in wave 1. They'll go through their reviews and so on. I think there was 7 waves, the EE11, if I remember correctly, right? So, and then as far as the profiles, these are all for June, July of next year. Okay, so yeah, this is exciting. I really think the updates to the TCK will make this happen. All right, so stay tuned. All right, so let's cover the new spec. All right, Jakarta Query will be, under the whole topic of persistence, database access, those kinds of things. So this is basically an object-oriented query language to use with, Jakarta Data, persistence, NoSQL in the JVA language. And I thought I had it written here. No, I did not. The initial intent is to take the Jakarta persistence query language under Jakarta persistence and the Jakarta Data query language under Jakarta Data and move them into Jakarta Query. Makes sense, right? So I think that's the original work that's going to go on there. Jakarta Portlet was from the Portlet spec 3.0, which is JSR 362. You can look that up, right? And when it was, a whole history of that. And this was part of Java EE 8. And this basically is to enable the development of modular, reusable web components, and is known as portlets. And I kind of remember when these came out. I don't remember if I really experimented with these or not, but this has to do with, this will work with Jakarta faces, that kind of thing. And then the portlet bridge it basically is to have Jakarta faces apps operate within a portlet environment. Okay, there's a portlet container. So, and it has to, as it says in that sub-bullet, a bridge that aligns the life cycle of Jakarta faces with the Jakarta portlet life cycle. And this was from the Portlet 3.0 bridge for Java Server Faces 2.2 from JSR 378. So I think this is, this will be a nice, some nice new specs to complement all the other existing specs. So I was told that query will probably be under 12, and these last two may or may not, depending. So that's just, what I was told, but, you can't take that for gospel necessarily, but, that's the original thinking. All right. And finally, one last thing I wanted to mention is the Jakarta EE Future Directions group. And this was formed almost a year ago. And as soon as I found out about it, or somebody asked me about it, or however it was, I was like, yeah, I'm in. So we are, so I'm in representing the Garden State Java user group. All right. So basically, this is, to have all kinds of diverse set of developers, whether you're a committer or not, or just a user of Java or Jakarta EE specs, it doesn't matter. We want your opinion. All right. We want your, what you think you like to see in Jakarta EE 12 and beyond. So if you're interested, you can go to that URL at the bottom to learn more about it. So the roles that we have is idea creation, research. We recommend, right? We'll work closely with the Jakarta EE and microprofile working groups, at least, for the time being with microprofile. And so then, they get to assure the ideas are scoped, prioritized, and understood. And so whatever we recommend is non-binding. So the working groups don't have to, the way I understand it or read it, accommodate any of the recommendations. All right. So this is basically intended to provide insights and ideas that the working groups may not have time to consider. That's pretty much kind of from the documentation itself. I think this is a good thing to have a diverse set of folks to talk about that. Of course, as you may imagine, AI has been thrown out there. Whether that happens or not, we don't know. So, but we'll see. And this is the beauty of open source, right? Working together to make things better. So yeah, participating members, I mentioned the Garden State Jug, but you can see all the folks there. IBM, iJug, London Java Community, Microsoft Omnifish, Open Elements, Oracle, and Payara. And as I said before, we need you. We meet every other week. There's only a handful of us that participate in the meetings. They're only about a half hour, and we've gotten into our meetings now have a focused topic. All right, so this is a good thing. I think this, if you're interested, in participating and dedicating a half hour twice a month, it would be awesome. And some resources here: the Jakarta EE specs. I have on my website. You can get the slides. I do have some updates to the slides. So, but if you download it now, pretty much the same thing. Arjan, as I mentioned earlier, had this presentation or a blog post called Boost Performance and Developer Productivity with Jakarta EE11. I think in that one, he actually categorized the specs in certain topics. So you can imagine security, authentication, and authorization being under sort of a general security topic. Then you have your database related ones and so on. I think that was pretty cool. Nice way of looking, at something more, graphically. And then those are my example applications. And then this was the video from Luis Neto securing applications with JWT. And that should be an application. So I got a couple of things to fix. And getting involved in open source, as I mentioned over here. Tanya Obradovic, who's the Jakarta EE program manager at the Eclipse Foundation, had in a slide called SEED, to share, embrace, engage, and develop. And I think this, you can't say it any better about what open source is. And I just want to say a couple of quick things on that. There seems to be a urban, as it were, that you need to only contribute code to open source projects. Not true. The folks involved, the committers in any given spec, appreciate things like documentation. you know, even Java docs, right? You know, if you see something and you can read the Java docs and you see something that, you know, it's not quite right, you can, you know, propose a pull request and make that change. I researched something from Micronaut about 3 or 4 years ago. They had a script, a shell script in there, and it didn't work for me. And then I made it work, and I made that, you know, it contributed that, and they accepted it, right? So this is the beauty of open source. I can't stress that enough. If you have your own Jakarta EE experiences, please share them in any way, shape, or form. Go to your Java local Java user group, and if you're not not a leader in that, go to the leaders and say, hey, I've been working on X, and I'd like to share that with the members. Awesome stuff, right? So with that. Oh, there are so many people to acknowledge here, and I can't thank them enough for their help in whatever they've done to make me learn various things, and to help me out with that. And that I can go on for another hour to talk about what these folks have done. So thank you to these folks. And then this is my contact info, and thank you for taking an hour out of your day to listen to this old man ramble out about Jakarta EE. So it's only 10:46 here in New Jersey, so it's kind of early to have that beer right now. So, but in any event, thanks for taking the time to spend it listening to me here. So if any questions, I'll stop sharing if I can. Here we go.
Thank you for the excellent presentation today, Mike. If anyone in the audience has any final questions, just feel free to ask them in the chat or use the Ask a Question tab. A final reminder, the webinar feedback survey is now open, and we are looking forward to your participation. So, Mike, let's check if we have any questions.
So somebody, so there was a question, I guess, a half hour ago from Atul. And he asked, this is an update of J2EE. So J2EE was the original name. It lasted a few versions, and there was Java EE 5 after that, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8. And this corresponded to the SE versions, right? So it was JDK 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Then it was Java SE 5, and then the rest is history there. And oh, Jared answered that question. I just realized that. Okay, so thank you, Jared, for. He's the Jared is the I guess is it the coordinator of Jakarta EE 12? I forget the exact title. So it was Ed Burns for 11. So and by the way, having that responsibility, I don't think is an easy task. So thank you, Jared, for taking that on for 12.
So let's check if they have any more questions besides the ones that are already answered. And it looks like not really. So no more questions for today. So I would like to thank you, Mike, again. And thanks to everyone for attending. And I hope all of you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, folks. Take care. Okay.